Greetings YouTubers on this bright, beautiful, sunny day. Hopefully everything's going okay for you in YouTube land. Today we are going to be working on a 2011 Chevy Aveo. It has a wheel bearing problem. We are going to be replacing both front wheel bearings in this Chevy Aveo. Okay, so here are the new ones. I got both of these online, free shipping for about $35 to $40, and that seems to be the pretty common price for these. And of course, these are the press-on type. You will have to have some kind of a press, and I have a little cheap Harbor Freight press that I use for all my stuff. I've had for years, and it's been a lifesaver, and I've made my money back on it probably 4 or 5 times already. So we got to press these in today, and hopefully this will help you out in your Chevy Aveo. Okay, so first thing we need to do is go ahead and get this up in the air, put the emergency brake on, and block the back wheels. The emergency brake is pulled, and now we'll go ahead and block our back wheels just for a little extra security. And now we're ready to dig into this. Okay, so first thing is first, we gotta go ahead and get this axle nut off. Now you can take this off while the tire's still on the ground, but for me, I'm gonna use a screwdriver and stick it up on top into the rotor right here. And it'll hold that from turning, and we'll just go ahead and break this loose. And this is a 1 1/4 inch socket for this. And you're going to have to put some muscle into this. Alright, there we go. Go ahead and get this off. Shouldn't be too bad to take off. Now the other side, someone's worked on it, so it was a little harder to get off. But there's that. Alright, let's get that off. Alright, let's go ahead and get our washer off. I want to forget that. Get out of the way. And now we'll go ahead and take our bolts out of our brake caliper. They are 14 millimeter. Alright, so there's this one off. And remember, when you put these back in, start them with your fingers. Do not jam a socket on there and just start tightening them up, because these threads are very fine and you can strip these, so just remind yourself when you do that. And now we'll go ahead and take the bottom one out. Alright. And these look like they are in really good shape, which is great. And now get a screwdriver and kind of push back on the caliper a little bit, so the brakes will end up going back into the bore, and you'll just have to figure out what's best, works for you. Alright, kind of tough to get a screwdriver in there, but if you push on these hard enough, you can get these pistons to go back into the calipers. And there we got that. And now we got to get a bungee cord, and we got to take this out of this little sleeve right here, this little bracket, and we'll take our bungee cord, wrap it around this, and hang this up so it doesn't hang by the brake line. And now you can see this is nice and secure, hanging by the bungee cord. And now let's go ahead and get these brake pads off. Let's inspect them. These here are down to about halfway, so it's probably a pretty good idea if they go ahead and replace these. And there's one on the back here. And this here is the squealer I call it. When your brakes get down so low, you'll hear a squealing noise. This little piece of metal right here actually rubs against this rotor and it makes the noise when these pads get down so far. And you can see these are right there on the edge, so these really need to be replaced. So I have to tell the person to get some pads pretty soon. And now we have to take off these two bolts here. These are caliper bracket bolts. They are 3/4 inch, and you'll have to put some muscle into these because these are going to be on there. And I have an extension ratchet here. Oh, good Lord. That one was on. Of course, these have never been off probably. Not sure how many miles is on this vehicle. I don't think it's got that many miles on it, but that or they put thread locker on here. And I say thread locker, see the blue stuff? So there is one. Now we've got one on the bottom, and I think you can actually see that one. So I'll try not to hit the camera when this breaks loose. Let me stand up. 1, 2, 3. Gosh, I'm getting too old for this. All right. That or it's just late in the day. And there's that one. And remember, even these, start these in with your fingers. Don't just jam them in there and put a wrench or a socket on them, because you will strip these threads. They are fine threads, metric threads, and I've seen guys strip these lots and lots of times. And now we'll pull our bracket off, get it out of the way, and check your anti-rattle clips here. Make sure, you know, they're okay. They look all right. Okay, what we got to do next is go ahead and take these two screws out here. This kind of holds this rotor on there, but one of my screws are missing. Check that out, it's gone. We've got one on the bottom. I don't have an impact screwdriver set. You know, the ones that you put on a screw and you hit it, and it turns it as you hit it and it breaks these loose. I don't have that, so we're going to have to just take the hammer. I have one, I don't know where it's at today. So usually if you just hit it like this a couple times, you might be able to get it with a regular screwdriver. There we go. And there's that one. All right, let's go ahead and pop this rotor off. All right, so let's inspect it. It looks good on the inside, and the outside looks great. Okay, now what I want to do, I want to go ahead and see if I can get this axle to push back a little bit. I know you can do it just a little bit, but I want to see if it will break free, because if it doesn't break free, I'd hate to take all this other stuff off and not be able to get this axle out. So in order to do that, you really need something like this. I've had this forever. I bought it at Harbor Freight for like 25 bucks, and there's like 4 sets in here. I've broken 2 of them, but the big one here is what we're going to use. And trust me, folks, this makes a job very easy. Considering you don't want to be hitting the end of that axle, messing up the thread. So this is what we're going to use. Okay, and you get the idea. You see the setup here, and I can tell you right away, the axle is coming out. It's no big deal. I was worried about that, but you can see I'm turning this with my hand. So that's no problem. So just so you know, have a set of these on standby in case you need them for these axles. Okay, so far so good. Since that's been going in our favor so far here, we'll go ahead and pop this tie rod in nut off. And this is a 3/4 inch socket. There we go. And try to get these all the way off so they don't turn, because you don't want to hit this and have this thing start to spin around on the bottom. If it does, you're going to have a bad day. So just do what you can to get this off without hitting it. And unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to have to put a little bit of heat on this, because it is getting a little hard to turn, and I don't want to take a chance of this whole thing spinning around. So let me get my heating propane torch. Not gonna like that. That's a tough one. Get some peel in there. That is a tough nut. It's almost off. Little things like this can take half a day, so to speak. All right, finally. I know you were doubting me. Wow. I can't believe that thing was on there. All right, so we'll let that cool off. All right, so what we got to do next is go ahead and take this bottom nut off. This is a 3/4 inch nut, and we're going to use a wrench like this because we can't get a socket on there. And we're going to use a secondary wrench here for leverage. An old trick we do. Stick this on there like this and put a little leverage on it and break this loose like that. And it usually comes off pretty easily. And there we go. And I'll say this one came off a lot easier than that tie rod end nut. I'll have to probably look for another nut for that tie rod end anyway, so that's off. All right, what we got to do next is take these bolts off, nuts off of the strut, and you will have to use a breaker bar. I try to use my little 1/4 inch, but it ain't going to do it. It'll just break off, but you will have to use an extension on this, and should come right off. Oh. There's that one. Oh. All right. So I put a little oil in there just to help it. And now we should be able to get this right off. All right, so there they are. Okay, so I'm gonna leave one of these in here for now because what we got to do is go ahead and knock this tie rod end off and go ahead and loosen this bottom ball joint. Hit it a couple times. Okay, now on this tie rod end here, I'm using a slightly large hammer. It's not the biggest thing in the world. I think I only paid $20 for this thing years ago. You could probably use a smaller hammer, but just hit this a couple times right here. Our boot is good, so we don't want to damage it. There we go. Usually it takes 4 or 5 big hits. And now we'll do the same thing with the bottom. Actually, all right, it came pretty loose. All right, that wasn't too bad. Now at this point, everything's ready to come loose. I just want to go ahead and verify that we got everything loose here. This is where we left the top bolt in at the top here, right here in the strut, so it'll catch it. So let me grab my little pry bar here, and we'll just kind of push down on this lower control arm. All right, like that. And now we'll go ahead and knock this bolt out. Like that. It usually comes off a lot easier, but I got a little bit of weight on it. And now we'll just simply tap the axle out of the bottom here. And there it is. There's the back of the bearing. You can see there's a lot of rust in there, so this is why sometimes you have to use those claws to get them out, the claw tool. So, and bearing seems to be okay, but they want new ones in it anyway, so they're going to take a trip, so that's what we're going to do. Now, while we have that off, do yourself a favor, check your boot, make sure it's not torn or anything, it's in good shape. No play, nothing excessive. Check your lower ball joint, it should be nice and tight. The boot's not torn. And also your tie rod end, it should be nice and tight. And the boot should not be torn. The threads look okay, which is great, so I'll just have to get another nut and put on it. Okay, so here is our hub. It is inside. We are going to have to stick it on a press. Now, I've seen some guys change these bearings out using one of those portable things that you rent, or you can buy, you know, the case that has all the cups and the big vices. I'm not even going to do that. I've never done it, and there's no way I'd ever do it, because even with a press, these things are really tough to get out. But if you want to try it, and I've seen some guys online do it on YouTube, knock yourself out. But I guarantee you, they make it look easy, but they probably spent a half a day just trying to get the bearing out using those tools. So here's what I am using. I am simply using a Harbor Freight 20-ton shop press that I picked up about 6 years, 5-6 years ago for around $200. And let me tell you something, this thing has paid for itself 5 or 6 times. So if you do a little mechanical work now and then, it would probably pay you to go out and buy one of these. They're very easy to operate. I've never had an issue with it, and this is what we're going to use. So this is something you might want to look into investing into if you do a lot of wheel bearings, or you plan on doing a lot of wheel bearings. And you can make a little extra money too at having one of these by letting your friends come over and say, hey, can I borrow your press? I got a wheel bearing to press in. And you might make a few bucks, enough for maybe some beer money. Alright, so what we got to do is go ahead and set this assembly up in here. Now, there is no right, there's no wrong way to do it. What you got to do, you got to figure out what works best for you. The problem with a lot of these hubs and these assemblies is you got to figure out what you want to put underneath to make it level in order to get this stuff pushed out and pushed apart and pushed back in. Here's what I typically use. I simply just have a box of junk, old bearings and stuff that I've kept over the years from people coming over using my press, leaving stuff behind, and this stuff here can be a lifesaver. Also, I have a big assortment of sockets. You just never know what you can use. You'd be surprised what a socket can do. And I even have blocks of wood laying around. You'd be surprised what you can do with those. So you just got to really get creative. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set this up. First thing I got to do is press this hub here out. So here's my setup. I've just got a couple pieces of wood there, and I've got the hub assembly fairly level. And I'm using a 13/16 inch socket there on the top of that, and you can see how it's setting on the press. And you can see how this particular 15/16 inch socket, I should say, is setting in there, and it's just enough to center in the center of that hub to push it out. So let's verify this one more time. Yep, 15/16 inch of a socket. So that's what we're using. So let's go ahead and we'll press this out. Here's the setup, and like I said, this is pretty tough to get out. Not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. And now we've got it going. Alright, so there it goes. You can see it moving. Oh, that came right out. So that was a piece of cake. Alright. The thing is, I don't care how it comes out as long as it comes out. And it looks like, for now, it came out in 2 separate pieces, which I figured it would. You got the old bearing race still on there, and you got the rest of the bearing in here, and I'll show you why we had to do that. Okay, so here is what we just pushed out, and you can see part of this race is still in there. I'll show you how to take that off. And here's why we had to push this part. You see, we have to get this clip here out, because this bearing whole housing comes out this way, so it's kind of tedious. I know you can buy this whole thing online probably for about $60 a piece, but you know, if you can press the bearings in and save $20 or $30 aside, well, you know, that's still $60 or $70 in your pocket. But just so you know, you can buy these with the bearing already in them and everything, so just something you might want to consider if this is too much for you. Okay, well, here is this hub, what's left of it. We got to use this, so what we can do is take our chisel and get behind this race. Now, I've got it started. If you get something that's really sharp, you can actually get this race off like this, or you can take a Dremel tool and just cut it off. But just hit this several times on both sides, and it's starting to come off. It may take a few minutes, but it'll come. And you can see how far I got it already, so this will take a few minutes. Alright, we just about got it off there, and I think there it goes. Just about off. And there it is. And don't worry about scratching this up. If you do, just take a little sandpaper to it, because this doesn't affect the bearing. So that is off. That's one way. If you don't have a Dremel tool, you can get this off. A little tedious, but it works. Alright, so we got to get this clip out. And I usually use some pretty strong needle nose pliers. You may have to take a hammer and hit this a little bit, and take a screwdriver and kind of knock it inward. Hit it a few times so it'll break free of the rust. And take a secondary screwdriver and go in behind it, and sometimes you can get it out that way. Alright, it's just about out. You gotta do what you gotta do, right? I need to go to Harbor Freight and get me a set of nice clips. So this is a pretty big clip. It's pretty sturdy. So that's one way you can get it out. And now what we got to do is set this back on the press and push this bearing out. And that's it. And we put the new one in. Okay, so I don't know how well you can see this, but here's my setup. I've just got a big cup on the bottom here just to kind of let that old bearing fall in it. And this is just a socket. And that's all I got there. And you can see pushing this out is a lot easier than pushing the hub out, so go ahead and you'll hear it probably pop a couple of times. No, it's going. Actually, it's going easier than I thought. So this wasn't too bad on this side. You can still probably put a block of wood on this side and something here, but I actually had this big outer race bearing piece that I used, and I'll show you in a second. Okay, I like it when a plan comes together. So take this socket out, and there's the bearing, and this is what I'm using here, this thing. I'll set this down and show it to you. And here's what I'm using, this thing here, but you could put anything here on the outside of this. And when you're pushing this old bearing out, come back here. When you're pushing it out, you can actually put something on the inside here, because sometimes it's kind of hard to get something on the outside, because there's bearings on the other side here, and the way this is beveled, it's going to push this outer race out, this whole thing out, so you won't have to worry. So that's done, and all we have to do now is clean this up a little bit. Take a little sandpaper, sand this down, put some oil in here, some heavy oil, and do the same thing with your new bearing on the outside, and you'll be surprised just how easy these things will press in. So let's get that done. Okay, so we're good there. That's all cleaned up. Now we'll take a little bit of grease and kind of go inside here, and this just helps it slide in. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not the space shuttle we're working on here. And this should go right in. So just kind of get it started like that, and take your hammer and just gently tap, sort of get it centered straight. Looks good. And now we're ready to go ahead and push this in, and we'll use our old one. This one here that we popped out, we'll just simply put it on top and just push it back in, and we're good to go. Okay, so here's my setup. I got my new bearing, the old bearing on top, and that's actually a connecting rod. You know, like I said, I keep everything, and I got some blocks of wood down here, and we're ready to push this in. So you can watch me on time lapse here. And we are in, my friend, just like Flynn. Alright, so there's that, and there's the old bearing. We just take it out, and we'll take it out here and look at this real quick. And you can see we got it pressed in there, and our clip should go right in there, no problem. And nothing is torn. And like I said, this grease really makes it easy for it to go back in there. And now all we got to do is press in our little hub. Alright, we'll do the same thing with this guy here. We'll put some grease on it so it slides in. And we're ready to put this in. Ooh, and before we do that, I almost forgot. We got to put our clip back in. That would have ruined my day. But I knew to do it. So let's go stick this in. Okay, so that went pretty well. Alright, now let's go ahead and push that hub on. Okay, as you can see, I got it kind of straight there. It's in there pretty nice. Just take your hammer and kind of tap it a little bit. You know, it'll probably actually go in a little bit. So we're good there. Now we can set it on the press. Go ahead and press it on. Okay, so here's my setup. I got my big old socket there, and what I'm doing, I'm putting the socket on the shiny part here on the inside of this race. This guy right here. Not the outside, the inside. The socket sits right on there, just like that. And the idea is we're going to push down on that race, and that's going to push that race right over this hub, and it should slide right down on there. So that's how you got to do that. You got to be careful because sometimes you can ruin bearings if you push on the wrong side, the inner or the outside of that race on those bearings. So let's go ahead and push this on. Alright, so here we go. And before anyone asks, this is a 36mm socket, so it's a pretty big socket. And you can probably see it going down as I'm pushing on it there. It should go on real easy, and it is. It's going on really easy. So to do both of these this bearing job on this car was going to be about $550. That's what they said it was going to be. So she said no. She said she'd pay me. So I said okay. And you can see it's going. And there we go, it's bottomed out. So we are done. How about that? I'll take it. So let's look at it real quick. Alright, so there we are. We're done. And feels really good. So I'm happy we got this here done tonight. It's getting late, so all I have to do now is put everything back on in reverse order. Pretty easy to do. I'm not going to show you how to do that. Obviously you know how to do it if you took it apart. And we're going to be done. So let me go ahead and stick this on here, and we'll wrap this video up, I should say, and hopefully this will help you out. And if it does, give me a thumbs up. Okay, so it's almost 100% back together. I just got to do the tie rod in tomorrow morning, and we'll put the wheel back on it, and we'll take it out for a ride and see if our rattling noise is gone, and also how it drives. So we should be in pretty good shape. It's getting dark, so it looks like this is it for tonight, but tomorrow we'll take it out for a ride and wrap the video up. So hopefully this helps you out putting a wheel bearing in your Chevy Aveo. So see you here in the morning. Okay, YouTubers, new day, lots of sunshine. We have it finished up, and here is the passenger side. It's all done, wheels back on. We're going to take it out for a ride here in a minute, and also over here, this is all done. I'll still have to go get a screw where there is one missing, and also here is a tip. If you're going to ever put your tie rod ends on and you go to put your nut back on and then you find this whole thing is turning, simply get you another jack, put some pressure up on this tie rod end, lift up on it, push that tie rod in up in that knuckle there, and that should get your nut on there. Although I had to take this nut off earlier, and you saw how difficult it was, and what I had to do to find the bolt with metric threads and actually put it in my press here, and I took a socket and I basically spun it on, spun it off until that nut, the threads got cleaned out really well and everything, and that's how I was able to reuse that nut on that tie rod end, because that nut is a metric nut and I don't have any other ones that'll fit it. Okay, the wheel's on, let's take it out. But one quick thing here, I was online last night and I wanted to see how much the whole hub assembly would cost with the bearing, the knuckle, the whole thing. $200 just for one. Check this out. And here is one listed on eBay. Check that out. And this is without ABS, and look at that price, $200. So yep, these are pretty expensive if you buy the unit as one. So this is why a lot of people press in bearings and try to save money. And that was the cheapest one I can find online. So this is why some people go through the aggravation just changing out these bearings for $40. So all right, let's take it for a ride. Okay, so we're moving right along here, and everything seems to be okay, nice and smooth, no noises. That's what we want after we get a job done like this. So I guess that'll be about it for the video, guys. Thanks for watching. If you like any of my videos, like and say hi and let me know where you're watching from. So until my next video, I'll see you guys later.